So we've been talking a lot this evening about time. I'm just curious, without looking at your clocks or your watches, how many of you feel like you know about what time it is? Yeah, quite a few of you, right? Because we do, right? We know generally what time it is. This is what grounds us in space and in our universe. And sometimes you know exactly what time it is when you've got a train to catch, or you know you're running up against a babysitter deadline. Or sometimes you have a wonderful night out like tonight and you lose track of time. So our relationship with time changes based on the circumstances. And I also feel like your relationship with time can change a little bit based on your personality. And I have a personality that has an interesting relationship with time. Some might call it a little bit obsessive. Ever since I was a kid, I'm the oldest child of two oldest children. We all love to plan. We love to think about the schedule. My parents and I would pore over the calendar a year in advance, planning our family vacations, going shopping for the vacation clothes like 6 months in advance, I'm not kidding. And I have grown up to be an adult like this. Again, you're going to think I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. I start thinking about my holiday cards in the summer. I start planning what we're going to wear in the pictures. I have them designed, signed, sealed, delivered, sitting there on the doorstep, just waiting patiently until Thanksgiving when it's socially appropriate to mail these cards. And my profession as a lawyer, well, this is just perfect. We honestly think about our day in quarter-hour increments. Can you imagine, if you're not a lawyer, recording every 15 minutes of your life? But I love it. I love that my clients value my time, and I can look at that timesheet and see how productive I was that day. Some of my friends make fun of me, as you might imagine. I'll start talking to my girlfriends about the next girls' trip about 16 months in advance, and I tell them we need to look at airfare, and they explain to me, the airlines haven't even posted the airfares that far in advance. And I can laugh at myself, but I'm not embarrassed or ashamed about this personality trait. I take a lot of joy and pleasure in thinking about the future, thinking through contingencies, thinking ahead to plan nice things that I can look forward to and that my family and friends can look forward to. I must admit, however, that this personality trait of mine can be a little bit painful when things don't go according to my plan, when that schedule doesn't work out exactly as I had mapped it out. So I'd like to talk to you tonight about someone very special to me, someone who has changed my relationship with time, and that's my son, William. Over the course of the 11 years of his life, he's taught me that a little bit of uncertainty doesn't have to be painful. So the story starts about 14 years ago. My husband and I decided we were ready to have children, and of course I was planning this out. I wanted to have 2 kids. I wanted them about 2 years apart. I kind of thought they would be boys, though I didn't plan that part. In 2003, my first son, Owen, was born, and exactly 2 years later, along came baby William, right on schedule. He was a beautiful, full-term, chubby baby boy, and as I held him in my arms in the hospital, all my careful planning and scheduling started to go right out the window. Shortly after William was born, it was clear that he had severe neurological problems. He wasn't feeding properly. His heart and breathing were all over the place. He wasn't maintaining his body temperature. He was having mild shakes that looked like they could be neonatal seizures, and so he was promptly admitted to the NICU at the Children's Hospital. There, the doctors declared him a complete mystery. They poked and prodded him, ran all the tests they could think of. No clue why a healthy, full-term baby boy would be behaving in this manner. And in our second night in the hospital, one of the doctors sat by his bedside and said to us, "I just looked at a CT scan of his brain. He has a massive bleed on his brain, and I'm sorry, but I don't think he's going to survive the night." It was the longest night of my life. Time passed so slowly. But the sun came up the next morning, and William was still with us, and there was no bleed on his brain at all. She had misinterpreted a shadow on the CT scan. So, with much joy and relief, we still had problems in that nobody could explain what was happening with this child. After 2 months in the NICU, we implored the doctors to let us take him home. I learned how to feed that NG tube down his nose. I learned how to work the heart and breathing monitors, and we took him home. And then we embarked on a journey to visit every specialist in the Midwest. We had a week at the Mayo Clinic, seeing every neurologist, geneticist, metabolic specialist. No one had any answers about this child. And as you can see here, adorable, sweet, happy baby. He was so happy to just lay with toys and watch the world go by, but he was not hitting any of his developmental milestones. Nothing. He wasn't learning to roll. He wasn't learning to sit. He certainly wasn't learning to stand or talk, feed himself. And I remember distinctly when his first birthday rolled around, I loved this child dearly, but I was so sad. I didn't even want to have a birthday party for him. All I could think about was all the things he wasn't doing that a typical one-year-old child should be doing. Time was flying, and time just felt like my enemy. Those first few years of William's life were filled with a lot of uncertainty. My marriage ended at that time. The strain was just too much. So there I was, a single mom, 2 small children, one of whom was severely disabled. And my usual go-to for problem solving would have been to start planning. What are the contingencies? How do I address them? How can we move forward? But those things weren't working. I had so many unanswered questions. Would this child ever learn to sit up? Would he ever feed himself? Would he ever walk? Would he ever talk? Could he ever hold a job or live independently? There was no way to start planning and scheduling for the future when I had no idea what the next day even had in store. So I had to take kind of a hard look at myself, and I realized he wasn't going to change. So I needed to change. And I needed to just start thinking about today. What did he need today? He wasn't mobile, so we got him a little wheelchair. It was the cutest wheelchair you've ever seen, with his name embroidered on the back of it. We made the house more handicap accessible. Owen jumped right in as a wonderful big brother, even as a young child, and learned how to play with William on his level, learned how to help feed William. And then as I looked at our family and looked at myself, I realized, this isn't so bad. It's not so bad to slow down a little. It's not so bad to live in the moment. And so what if William can't talk? When he looks at me, that sweet smile, I know what he's trying to communicate. And so what if he can't feed himself? We both love to eat, and this meant lots of long, leisurely meals together. It was making me more calm and patient. It was making Owen a more empathetic big brother. And it just felt like time became our friend, and our new normal was the snail's pace. When William turned 5, we moved to the OPRF community. I think Owen and I were both a little trepidatious about moving somewhere. We felt like our family was a little different. I was a divorced mom. We had a little boy with a lot of disabilities. We kind of stood out. But this community did not need any time. The day we moved in, I remember the neighbors were all over us. Balloons, presents, fresh-baked cookies, so eager to get to know us, asking me lots of questions about William. How can we help you? And then we took William to school, and the teachers were amazing, integrating him with the regular ed kids and the special ed kids, and then there were the kids. So unbelievable. We would get all these presents sent home for William in his backpack. I would find a wrapped book, and there would be a little handwritten note from a second grader saying, I saw this book in the bookstore, and it reminded me of William, so I asked my mom to buy it for him. And Owen and I just noticed we started to relax. We started to feel acceptance in this community, and then even pride. Our slightly odd family seemed like it was kind of cool. And I remember one day I went to the grade school to meet with the principal, and she told me, did you know that William has been dubbed the mayor of the elementary school? And then she jokingly chided me because one day when it was William's birthday, I had sent him to school with balloons tied on the back of his wheelchair. And she said it caused a complete disruption for the entire day. The children started screaming and running down the hall about how it was William's birthday, and then fighting about who got to plan his special birthday activity. Time just felt less relevant. So here's William at age 7, such a sweet, happy child, still not talking, not walking, not crawling, but so motivated by being with family and friends. I had stopped to think so much about what his future development was going to be like. Wasn't thinking as much about those possibilities of him crawling, walking, becoming independently mobile. And one day, I put him down on my bedroom floor with some toys. I needed to take a shower. I went across the hall to take a shower, and I could hear him crying. He was mad. He had been left alone in my room, but I had to shower. We had somewhere we had to be. And when the shower finished, I realized he wasn't crying anymore, and I opened the shower curtain, and there he was at my feet. He had crawled for the first time ever in his life to get from my bedroom to the bathroom because he was mad I had left him alone. I just stood there, dripping water all over him, bawling my eyes out until he finally burst into tears. He had no idea what was wrong with me. Sometimes miracles happen when you least expect, and time just seems to stand still. So here we are this year. William turned 11 this year. And earlier in the year, we went to visit the neurologist. I had stopped going to the doctors very much. Honestly, it was something between depressing and humorous to just watch the doctors tell me, he seems like he's doing great, but no, we have nothing new to tell you. There's no answers. Just keep doing what you're doing. So we were at the neurologist this year, and I was describing additional odd behaviors of William's, and he just shrugged his shoulders, and I have no idea. But for a variety of reasons this year, we did decide to send off William's DNA for a battery of some new tests. The doctor told me, don't get your hopes up, and so I did try to put it out of my mind. And about 2 months went by, and I was sitting at my desk, and the phone rang, and it was the geneticist. And she said, they found something. He has a deletion on his 5th chromosome. It's a genetic syndrome. It's called Pura syndrome, P-U-R-A. It was first discovered 2 years ago, and they think William is patient number 50 in the entire world. It was like a rainbow coming out of the sky. Sometimes you want something so much that you never even think about it. I never even let myself dream what it would be like to have a diagnosis and to have all my questions answered. The doctor said, don't ask me anything about it. I've never heard of it. No one in this hospital has heard of it. And it turned out there was no doctor in Illinois who had heard of it. I quickly read everything that I could about it, and there wasn't much. And it answered all of my questions. William was exactly like the other children with Pura syndrome. I'll never forget that moment in time. But it wasn't long before I found out that my reaction was rather unique. I was eager to go home and tell Owen all about it. I went home right from work, and my eyes were puffy from crying happy tears all afternoon, and I sat Owen down on the couch, explained this to him in great detail. He finally interrupted me and said, Mom, I don't understand what you're so excited about. William is still William. And he was totally right. William is still William. This didn't change anything, and Owen never cared what was wrong with William. And then not long after that, I was introduced to other families with children with Pura syndrome. And many of their children had been diagnosed as infants, and they were devastated to find out their child had a genetic syndrome that would cause permanent serious disabilities. And that took me back in time. I went back to when William was turning 1, and I didn't want that birthday party. Even when he was turning 2 or 3, I still hoped that William was going to catch up, that he was going to heal, that he was going to become normal. I would have been devastated to know that he had a permanent genetic syndrome at that point. So what was going on here? William was still William. The diagnosis in and of itself was not good news. So why was I so happy? Certainly I was happy to have the answers that I hadn't had for 10 plus years, but more so I realized that diagnosis was a milestone for me, and it was a stake in my life where I could look back and get perspective over the last 10 years, and I just realized how far I had come for no other reason than the passage of time. Time had healed my wounds, the loss of what might have been. So here I stand before you today, and I'm still that type A, slightly obsessed lawyer, and I do have the vacations planned for all of next year. The airlines know me. But the last 11 years have changed me profoundly. When I look back, what I learned from grief, resilience, slowing down, the warmth of a community, the joy in small miracles, the surprise and unexpected answers, I had come so far merely by the passage of time. And all of us go through really, really challenging things, often devastating events. And I think it's very normal to feel confused, hurt, blameful, rage, to feel like you wish you could go back in time, forward in time, stop the clock. But I have learned you can't stop time. Time does keep moving forward. But time will be your friend when you least expect it. Thank you.